Değerli katılımcılar,
Distinguished participants, I'd like to wish you a very good, healthy day. My name is Özlem Cinemre. I'm Deputy Director General at the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey. Today, we are going to make a presentation about Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program. I'd like to welcome you all, and I'd like to thank you very much for your time and for your attendance to this meeting. Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program is financed by the European Union under the Facility for Refugees in Turkey, and it is implemented by the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey, which is abbreviated as TKYB, under the management of the World Bank. This grant program will be presented by my colleagues very soon shortly, and it also has a grant component and loan component. So it is just a part of the Formal Employment Creation Project, which also has a grant and loan components because of its scale and scope, inclusiveness of the project, and also with the additional supports it provides and with its objectives, it is very striking. And the budget is 70 million euros, which is a very huge amount, and we believe it's going to have major impacts. In all sectors and at all scales, all enterprises are included in our target group. That's why it has a very wide scope, we can suggest. On the other hand, we also have the technical support component under the grant program. So this is going to provide a service and support which is beyond grant to enterprise. All kinds of capacity building and education and training activities will be covered. And Formal Employment Creation Projects grant program has also an objective of creating formal employment and enhancing formal employment and increasing employment, because especially unemployment, the issue of unemployment is a problem not only in Turkey but also because of the COVID pandemic. It is a huge problem across the globe, unfortunately. And this grant program will also create employment, but also it will focus on women employment and employment of refugees. For that reason, it's going to reinforce the impact and effect of the grant. With these features of the project, Formal Employment Creation Project grant program can be implemented across all times because of its features I listed previously. We believe that it's going to contribute to the sustainable development and economic growth of Turkey. We announced our call for proposals in mid-December, and it's going to be finalized on the 28th of February, and we plan to hold 6 presentation meetings, and today it is the 5th meeting for this presentation. And very little time is left, and we answered hundreds or maybe thousands of questions, some of which are similar, some are different. And my colleagues will present the content and implementation of the grant program to be followed by the application steps to be presented by us. Altogether, we will go over the application steps. My colleagues will assist us in that, and we will follow with a Q&A. At www.case.org, you can find the answers to the already asked questions, frequently asked questions, and the answers thereto, and important deadlines, and all the details of the grant program and the presentation can be found there. And I wish that this is going to be a fruitful meeting for each and every one of you. And I'd like to hand over to our colleagues from the project implementation team, primarily Ayşegül Hanım. Thank you very much, Özlem Hanım, and distinguished participants. I'd like to extend my greetings to each and every one of you, and welcome to our meeting. My name is Ayşegül Çerçi. I'm a director at Development and Investment Bank of Turkey in Banking Cooperation, Development Cooperation, and Wholesale Banking. And also, I'm in the project implementation team of the Formal Employment Creation Project under the bank. Today, first, we are going to make a presentation, shortened presentation on this project, and then we're going to show you the electronic application platform step by step. And there is also simultaneous interpretation in this meeting. And if you want to follow this meeting in English, you can click on English channel from the interpretation button. And also you can submit your questions through the Q&A part. we will answer your questions verbally, and we will get your questions in writing. In the lower right corner of your screen, you can zoom in. You can make your screen bigger, and because we get a lot of questions about that, and you can increase the resolution of the video. And I wish you a fruitful meeting. I'd like to hand over to Naz Karabağlı, our project expert, to make the presentation. Over to you, Naz. Thank you very much, Ayşegül Hanım. Distinguished participants, I'm from Project Implementation Team. My name is Naz Karabağlı. Today I'm going to make a presentation on the Formal Employment Creation Project Grant Program. First of all, there are some important notes that we want to make. This presentation includes the Turkish translations of the Grant Program Application Guideline and its annexes at the TKYB.org website of the project, and this is just for information purposes for potential applicants. In case of any conflict between this presentation and the Grant Program Application Guideline and its annexes, the English versions of the guideline and annexes will be binding, and this presentation has been drafted with the financial support of the European Union, and the content solely is under the responsibility of the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey and does not necessarily reflect the views of the European Union. This is the presentation plan. First, we will describe the project, a Formal Employment Creation Project, and then we are going to introduce the project components, to be followed by general framework of the grant component and conditions of the grant program. After my presentation, Caner Bey is going to show you COI's application platform step by step. He is going to fill out an example or sample application. Formal Employment Creation Project had an objective of enhancing the conditions of formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces with high incidence of Syrians under temporary protection for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees, and financial resources and skills needed by the enterprises will be provided through the project, ultimately with a view to enhancing formal employment. And the total budget is 396 million euros, which combines the resources from the World Bank and also EU Fruit Funds facility for refugees in Turkey. There are three components in this project. The first one is the World Bank loan, which is provided to our bank, TKYB. In this component one, World Bank loan, we have direct lending, which amounts to 125.8 million, and also Apex loans, which amounts to 188.7 million. The second component is grant component, which is funded by the Facility for Refugees in Turkey of the European Union. 4 million euros has been allocated for the World Bank implementation and technical assistance, and 70 million is allocated for sub-grants under components 2. And the third component is technical and institutional support, which is funded through the grants and loans. And the total amount is 650,000 euros in Section 3 and 3C. These are related to projects and the beneficiaries of the sub-projects, and also the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey and participating financial institutions capacity building are aimed through this component. Under 3D, 3B and 3C, these are related to grants, and for the grants, in the technical support part of the grants, capacity building for the sub-grants implementing agency, TKYB, and monitoring and evaluation of the part of the project will be funded. And also, for all the components of the project, there are important implementation principles. First, all components of the project are implemented in accordance with the World Bank environmental and social standards. And also, under the technical and institutional support component, support will be provided to improve the institutional capacities of beneficiary companies and implementing financial institutions, and the skills of newly employed persons will be also supported. And finally, we also focus on women-inclusive firms. We put a special focus on women-inclusive firms in this project in our presentation and guidelines. You can refer to the definition of women-inclusive firms. Now I'd like to give you some information about grant component, loan component. There are two sub-components, which is direct and OPEC lending. Through the loan, direct lending, TKYB is providing investment and working capital loans directly to eligible large enterprises who employ equal to or more than 250 employees. More information can be requested from TKYB Corporate Banking and Project Finance Department on the website you see on our screen. As for the Apex lending, TKYB is providing subsidiary financing or loan to eligible participating financial institutions. And there are 6 participating financial institutions, which are Yapı Kredi Leasing, Vakıf Leasing, Garanti Leasing, QNB Finans Leasing, AK Leasing, İş Leasing. More information can be requested from the participating financial institutions. Now I'd like to provide you information about the grant component, which is the second component. These are the key features of this grant component. Firms will be asked to submit an employment plan to recruit new employees together with a viable business plan for the employment of 18 months, because the beneficiary companies will get a sub-grant on condition that they are going to create formal employment for Turkish citizens and refugees, including the Syrians under temporary protection. Employment records submitted by the firms will be cross-checked with official Social Security institution reports periodically in order to validate conditionality compliance. There will be no restrictions on sectoral basis except the exclusion list of the World Bank and TKYB, and firms will be able to access to either loan or sub-grants under the project. The participation of women-inclusive enterprises will be encouraged. Development and Investment Bank of Turkey designed a grant program in line with the objectives and priorities of the formal employment creation project and announced the call for proposal for the projects. The overall objective of the program is to enhance the conditions for formal job creation by firms operating in growing economic sectors with high employment potential and located in selected 24 provinces with high incidence of Syrians under temporary protection for the benefit of Turkish citizens and refugees. Beneficiary firms will receive the grant conditional on formal employment creation, and there are two priorities of the program. The first priority is to create and increase formal employment for refugees and Turkish citizens, and the second priority is to create and increase formal employment for women. This project, which is abbreviated as KAYIST, and the grant program of KAYIST project will be implemented in 24 provinces that you see on the screen. And the companies that apply for the grant program must be registered officially in Turkey, and also they should carry out the activities of the project in one of these 24 selected project provinces. The total budget of the KAYIST project is 17 million euros. 14 million euros will be allocated for small enterprises, 22.4 million euros will be allocated for medium enterprises, and 33.6 million euros is allocated for large enterprises. The grant amounts ranges from 15,000 to 45,000 euros for small enterprises, and from 25,000 to 125,000 euros for medium enterprises, and from 40,000 to 300,000 euros for large enterprises. The requested sub-grant amount must be between 50% to 70% of the total eligible cost of the sub-project. Here in this chart, you see a sample expected funding sources for a small-scale firm by minimum and maximum support amounts. We just wanted to present this sample. The maximum, according to maximum 70% of total eligible cost, the requested amount of the sub-grants, co-funding, and also total budget is displayed. Another important part is human resources cost. It should be minimum 70% and maximum 90% of the total eligible cost. Depending on this percentage, you can see how much you should allocate for the other items on this chart. For the medium-sized and large-scale enterprises, you can review these sample expected funding sources on our presentation later in great details. KAIST grant programs eligibility criteria are divided into 3 categories: eligibility of the applicants, eligibility of sub-projects, and eligibility of costs. Who can apply? Applicant firms that want to apply to our grant program must be a legal person. Joint stock, limited liability, collective, ordinary limited partnerships, and limited partnership companies are eligible. They must be a small firm or medium firm or large firm, must be fully privately owned enterprise. I mean, publicly owned businesses are not eligible. Cooperatives and not-profit organizations, NGOs, are not eligible for this call. They must be officially registered in Turkey and must have facilities or operate in one of the selected project provinces, and must have been established at least 2 years prior to the date of call for proposals notice. Must have no previous not paid and overdue liabilities, overdue social charges or tax payments without exceeding the legal limits of prevailing legislation, and defaulted loans. They must be directly responsible for the preparation and management of the sub-project, not act as an intermediary, and not receive or must not have received a loan within the scope of the loan components of the formal employment creation project. As regards the eligibility of the activities, there are no sectoral restrictions or no categorical restrictions on eligible economic sectors or firms, except for the sectors excluded according to the World Bank safeguard regulations and exclusion list of TKYB and the World Bank, and they should be implemented in compliance with the environmental and social commitment plans of the project and environmental and social standards of the World Bank, and you can find the exclusion list on the project's website. The duration of the sub-projects can be from 18 to 21 months, and it's expected to the companies are expected to create and maintain formal employment for 18 months. Each applicant firm as a legal entity can submit only one sub-project proposal, and finally, the sub-projects must be implemented in selected project provinces. As regards the sub-grant, only eligible costs can be covered. For the eligible and ineligible costs, you can visit our application guideline. We recommend you to look at the details in that application guideline for this eligible and ineligible costs. Only all costs should be incurred by the beneficiary within the scope of the sub-project budget approved by TKYB, and the costs incurred before the approval of the sub-project will not be eligible, and the sub-project budget will be prepared in euro currency. As regards human resources budget heading, only the cost of the newly hired employees within the scope of the sub-project can be considered as eligible costs, not the cost of the already existing employees. The human resources costs of existing registered employees cannot be covered, and overall human resources cost refers to employer's cost. Another important point is human resources budget heading can consist of minimum 70% and maximum 90% of total eligible costs of the sub-project budget. So a balanced formal employment creation between Turkish citizens and refugees is aimed at through sub-grant program. If you pay attention to this point in your application, you get high scores. Another important eligible direct cost is working capital costs, which include raw materials, ancillary materials, components, sub-assemblies, and similar manufacturing materials, utilities such as electricity, internet, phone, water, and fuel maintenance costs. These budget items can be indicated as working capital costs as eligible direct costs. As regards fixed investment costs, they are the costs needed for new investments and or expansion or modernization of existing facilities, and covers multiple sub-project budget items such as machinery, equipment, vehicle, furniture, computer equipment, and also consumable spare parts, small-scale construction work, and also IT licenses and software, related software licenses, and other various investment expenditures. Another category of eligible direct costs is other costs, under which expenses related to consultancy, publication, research, audit, evaluation, visibility actions, promotional activities, work permit fees, most importantly, work permit fees, other employment-related legal fees, etc., incurred during the implementation of the sub-project are indicated under this budget heading. As regards eligible indirect costs, the indirect costs incurred administrative costs that are limited to 3% of total direct eligible costs, and incidental expenditures that is limited to a flat rate of 3% of total direct eligible costs are considered as eligible indirect costs. You are recommended to visit our application guideline for these ineligible costs, which may include debt service charges and costs financed by other programs and credit and grant to third parties, taxes including value-added taxes, purchase, rent and leasing of lands and buildings, second-hand machinery, equipment, bank charges, and also contributions in kind, any leasing costs, and also costs incurred by those other than the beneficiary firm, and also costs that are not related to the project are not eligible. All the information contained in this presentation can be also downloaded from our website. This is case.org, which is available in Turkish and English. Application guideline, application form and business plan and other application documents can be downloaded from our website in also Arabic. And from application tab on the website, you will be referred to the online application platform of the website, and if you have further questions, you can submit your questions from this website or from case@kalkınma.com.tr. The application platform, this is the login screen of the application platform. After this presentation, Caner Bey is going to take you through all the steps of the application process. At this stage, during the application process, you can log in with one-time code sent to your mobile phone, and you can save it as a draft. The application documents, application form and business plan, sub-grant budget, employment plan and performance indicators, the procurement plan and logical framework matrix are the application documents. And all of these documents are on the platform, and they have to be filled out online on the platform. TKYB, in order to verify the eligibility of the applicants, may request supporting documents from the applicants, and you can find the details of the supporting documents in our guideline. If any of these supporting documents is missing or not valid, another explanatory document must be uploaded. And also, this is the continued version of the supporting documents. For example, for environmental and social eligibility and compliance, some supporting documents are needed. If any of these documents is missing or not applicable, another explanatory document must be uploaded. For example, if you have an environmental impact assessment decision, that report should be uploaded. And also, if it is not it's not outside the scope of AI, you should also upload that document. How to apply? The sub-grant application form can be submitted on CASE sub-grant platform only in English and Turkish in electronic format, and you can find all the relevant information on our website. If there is any conflict between Turkish and English documents, as I said before, the English application guideline and its annexes will be binding. Related to application process, questions may be sent at the latest to case@kalkınma.com.tr on the 22nd of February, and also you can have access to the questions and information on case.org. And very briefly, I'd like to talk about the evaluation and selection of applicants or applications. Applications will be assessed by independent assessors to be appointed by TKYB under the supervision of TKYB. It consists of administrative and eligibility check, technical and financial evaluation, environmental and social assessment, notification of the contracting authority's decision, and some sub-grant contract signing. As regards administrative and eligibility checks, after passing these checks, all the applications will go through the technical evaluation part and technical and financial evaluation step, depending on relevance, financial and operational capacity, methodology, cost effectiveness and sustainability will be the categories where the applicants will be assessed. And if the total score is more than 65, and if you get a minimum 20 points in methodology, you will be successful. But below those scores, you will be deemed to have failed. And as regards methodology, I'd like to specifically focus on the scoring of the methodology part. As you can see, additional refugee employment and additional female employment and their percentage in the total additional employment will have different scores, and depending on the scale of the enterprises, different points will be assigned for each additional female and refugee employment. For example, there is also another last point. Does the proposal include sufficient additional registered employments? To get the full score from that, full points for 4 additional employments in small companies, and full points for 16 additional employments for medium companies, and 40 additional employments for large enterprises. And they are going to be multiplied by the fixed and constant numbers, and the maximum will be 25. In this KAIST grant program, you can see the indicative timetable. The deadline for the application submission is 28th of February 2021, 5 p.m. You can submit your questions about applications until 24th of February. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Naz Hanım. So at this stage, I'd like to hand over to Caner Bey for electronic application platform. But before that, let's show our website, explain our website a bit, and we can show them that they can find all the documents there and the areas, the tabs where the documents are uploaded, so that it will facilitate them searching these documents, and then electronic application form. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ayşegül Hanım. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, we can see your screen. Our website, kaist.org. So all application-related documents are available on this website. And in the home page, you can see what you can see on my screen, the announcements concerning the project. So you can ask your questions until the 24th of February. Naz Hanım delivered the presentation, and you can find that presentation in this page. You can also have some announcements concerning the dates of the information meetings, and the FAQ document is also available on our website. On the top left, you can also receive some general information about the project. You can see the components. From the tab which says project documents, you can also see the documents related to the project. From the call for proposals tab, you can see the application guideline and also related documents which are made available for your further information. And I mean, before I start showing you the platform, I also would like to show you the application guideline and the documents. So when you download the documents, you can also receive some information. Before you log into the platform, it is important for you to know which documents you should have as prepared and what will be in front of you. It's important to know these in advance. So FAQ, these are the 40 frequently asked questions that we would like to provide answers, and we replied to them. So there are some questions concerning employment of female workers, refugee workers, saying whether it's compulsory or not. SSI, whether there is a requirement of SSI of 10% foreign workers. So these are the frequently asked questions and replies of those questions which will guide you. In the announcements and the newsfeed part, I mean, there is only a small amount of time left until the deadline of the call for proposals, but in order to be updated, you can check our announcements on the website. Please follow our website. So here you can see the application tab which says Başvur, apply. So this is the page which automatically we are referred to. So of course, Nazanım showed on the screen previously. So there is an SMS that you receive on your mobile phone and you enter that code, and then you have to enter the tax ID number of the company and the name of the company, which is required in this platform. After providing consent, you say continue for application, and then you are seeing this first page where there is generic information. This appears automatically after you enter the name of the company. The name of the company appears here automatically, the budget of the project, and in the later pages, after you fill in the data in the later pages, the project budget appears here automatically. If the company has an abbreviated name, you have to enter that. The status, the type of the company has to be chosen from the drop-down menu, and you enter the tax ID that appears automatically, and the tax office that you're registered to has to be entered manually. The trade registry gazette and the date when you were registered to the trade registry gazette, and you can see you have to select one of the 24 provinces where your company is registered to. According to the scale, there are three main categories. So it is small scale or medium scale or large scale. You have to select one of those. And also for the last 3 years, 2019, 2020, end of 2019, 2020, the number of workers, and for 2020, 21, and for those applicants 2022, we need the last date for 2021, so the number of workers you have. So general information about your company, you save and continue, and then you see the NACE code for your area of activity, which has to be entered for the further breakdown. If you are operating in manufacturing, for instance, it is the metal sector, and then you click and there is a breakdown which you have to click and you save and continue. The third page concerns financial information about the companies. So as of the last 3 years, in the first column, the net sales, in the second column, the net income. So it means the net profit. So assets, debt, equity. So these are the different categories. So here, related financial information should be entered by using the Turkish lira, the Turkish currency. So the fourth page concerns the partnership structure of the company. We would like to see the partnership type. So from the drop-down menu, legal entity, natural person, or a publicly traded company, or it may have a partnership less than 5%. So you have to select other in such a case. Then you have to write down a percentage of the share. If you enter natural person, for instance, the share is 12%. So the identity number, name, nationality, and also the residence address, and also the ID photocopy. If it's a legal entity, the tax ID number and name of the company. These are the expected information. And after saving, the type of partnership automatically appears in the below section. We save and continue. And the related company's contact details are expected. Basic information such as address, telephone number, and of course the corporate email address and related website of the company. And of course, we also need the contact person authorized by the applicant throughout the sub-project. Who are we going to be in contact with? Their position and also other contact details should be entered here. In the next section, we are talking about the executive summary concerning the sub-project. Every sub-project is supposed to have a name, and that might vary according to the company. So you are supposed to write the name of the sub-project, and you are going to select one of the 24 provinces in which you're going to implement this sub-project, independent from the HQ of the company where you are going to create employment. So that province has to be selected. You cannot select several provinces on the platform, but of course you can create employment in several provinces. Doesn't necessarily have to be one, or you can make applications for several provinces. So if you select one, you select one, but in the later on in the narrative part, you can explain the other provinces. So I just wanted to remind you that you're not limited to one province. You can create jobs in several provinces. Nazan Hanım underlined minimum duration is 18 months, so a maximum 24. From the drop-down menu, please choose one. And the general objective of the sub-project, and we require one sentence, and for specific objectives, 2 sentences to describe them. So what are your target groups? Who will be directly and indirectly affected? Who are you going to support, and which organizations, institutions will be impacted? Final beneficiaries. So after the project implementation, on a macro perspective, on a social, community, or sectorial level, what will be your contribution? So that is expected to be described here. And what are the expected results after the project implementation? So we are expecting you to enter some data concerning those different sections. What is the scope of your sub-project? It might be a new investment, or strengthening the capacity, or diversifying your product range, or maybe you have been negatively impacted by COVID-19 and you want to compensate for that thanks to the project support, or maybe you have a more specific objective, so you have to choose one and you have to describe. And the last part of this page, it talks about the main activities of the sub-project that you are submitting. We are expecting you to explain that in general. What would be the action to be taken? So you are supposed to briefly describe that, because in the further tabs, you are going to talk about the action plan, the activity plan, which will be required to be submitted in greater detail. Regarding the company, very general information was provided in the previous pages. So those were very basic information that you had to enter. So what we want here is details about your company. What is the history of your company? What is the partnership structure? There are no limits to the number of characters. So in order for us to get to know you better, this is the right place for you to describe your company. You can see that it shows as a small frame, but there is no limitation about the character. You can describe details as many as you can. So concerning the current infrastructure, what kind of assets, what are the buildings, what is the situation, what kind of services do you offer? And here it talks about the number of full-time staff and part-time staff, and office information. You can describe all of those in detail. If you have an organizational structure and organizational diagram, the organigram, you can upload it, but this is not necessary. So if you want to do that, you can enter your organizational chart here if available. And the last part, we are talking about description of products and the services and market analysis. Of course, this is also very comprehensive, and you are supposed to describe the sector, the conditions, both regional, local, and international conditions. Who are your competitors? And what are your competitive advantages? What are the barriers? What are the challenges in this sector? What is your product range and diversity? This is kind of a SWOT analysis. Opportunities, threats, advantages, weaknesses, and strengths are supposed to be described. And if you answer these questions, you will be able to fill in this part in detail. So when you save and continue, in the 8th page, we are talking about the objectives of the sub-project. Nazan Hanım already underlined there is general objective and specific objectives of this project, but we are asking about the objectives of your sub-project that you are submitting. And of course, those need to be in compliance with the overall objectives of the grant program. What are your targets? Who are your target groups? So we are asking you to fill in all those information. Maximum 250 words is the limit, and the related warnings are already made available on the platform. Please take those into consideration. Once this project is realized, implemented, what will be the added value? So this is what is supposed to be described in the last frame of this page. So this part is about relevance and justification. This is an important part to be filled in. I previously talked about it. The grant program already has an objective. It already has a rationale, some justifications. So we are going to check how relevant your project will be, your sub-project will be to the grant program objectives. And we will check the priorities in compliance with the priorities of the overall grant program. So will you raise awareness among Turkish workers, refugee workers, and how are you going to implement your targets, reach your targets? So the list of the target groups and also numbers, what are the limitations? You can talk about those. And why? Why you? Why do you need this project? Why do you need these people? Why are you going to employ these new people? So you can describe all of those things here. So market position strategy and also relevance with the objectives of the sub-program. This is very similar to what I have just described. So what will your investment make as an impact? So you can also make a future projection for the next couple of years. What will be the increase? What are your assumptions? What are your estimations? Do you have a strategy concerning marketing, concerning operations? So you can talk about all of these things. We are expecting you to provide us with a market analysis here. So all sub-projects are required to talk about environmental and social aspects. World Bank is very sensitive about it. And also Development and Investment Bank of Turkey has some environmental management standards and social standards. So we would like to see your advantages or what are the disadvantages in terms of environmental and social impact. And we also would like to check your compliance with the legislation so you can enter that specific information. So if there are some other legal aspects of your project, you can talk about them in the last section.
Aksiyon planı.
The action plan. So in other words, it is the activity plan. This is an important part. So throughout your sub-project, all the actions you're going to take and the step-by-step implementation. So we are asking you to describe all of those. And this is a place where we expect these information to be entered month by month. So this is going to be like a timetable, like a time frame of your project implementation and the activities. I previously underlined that you can choose one province for employment, but if you're going to have several provinces in which you're going to create jobs, you can talk about them here. We want you to provide us the details of the employment that you're going to create. And in the plan part, step by step, on the basis of budget, we want you to enter information because in the further pages, there will be some budget information. We would like to see the details here. For instance, the human resources. Let's say you are going to employ 5 new people. That is your commitment. But before you employ those people, there will be some preparatory work like finding those people, signing contracts with them. And when you click on the plus here, the plus here, let's click on this one, human resources. Regarding human resources, you have to enter the relevant values here. For example, let's say research, pre-employment research and research here. You are supposed to find those people. So you are searching for those people. So from 1 to 24, these are the months after the sub-grant project is signed. The contract is signed with the bank. So you sign the contract and afterwards it starts counting. So you are going to start searching for those people in 1 month, and 2 months later, I find those people and I employ them in month 3, for example, 2 months later. So you are supposed to enter those data. Not only employment, you can buy machinery, you can buy software under the scope of the project, and there are other items of the budget. So we are expecting you to enter the data in details here. So machinery 2. So let's suppose that you're going to buy some machinery and you are supposed to enter some description. What is the machine specifically? Why are you going to buy that? And when are you going to do that? After signing the contract, in month 3, you are going to buy that machine, and that will be saved, and we will be able to see those details in this table. I save and continue, and the methodology part, you are proposing some activities. So based on those proposed activities or the machinery equipment or the employment that you are making commitments about, so we are expecting you to explain why and how. And the reporting part, who is going to be in charge of reporting and how are they going to do the reporting? What will be the evaluation processes? So you are supposed to summarize all that information. And finally, who will be in charge of the sub-project? So together with their responsibilities, people in charge and their title in the company are expected to be described. And then we expect you to show these people in charge on this grid. When you click on plus, relevant person's name, surname, position in the company, gender, area of expertise, not position, but like the department or unit that they work at. For instance, finance department, human resources, finance, and operation department, either of the 3. So key personnel we are talking about, and the number of years that this person has worked for this company, and you enter all those data, and those people's CV will be required in EU format as one of those supporting documents which are needed to be uploaded. So employment plan and performance indicators, and this page in fact is one of the most important pages of the platform. So both existing workers and the planned, the committed additional employment, these are the data that we would like to see here. When you click on plus, you see different tabs such as gender, employment status. Well, that depends on the qualifications, and status, Turkish, SUTP, Syrian under temporary protection, or it can be under ESSN, or it may not be under ESSN, or it can be some other refugee status. So let's say you're going to employ 3 new people, and you type in 3, and once you save, you can see in the total part, which is the last type, which is the last line, we can see the number of current personnel and number of people you're planning to employ. Save and continue. And the last 5 years, if you have had the experience to benefit from a similar grant, this is not compulsory. Maybe you didn't have any grant experience, you have not implemented a grant project before. If you have experience, please enter the reference number of the program, who provided you support, and the start date, the end date, and relevant information concerning your previous experience regarding grant project implementation. So we are asking about the expected impact on the target group, the sustainability, status of the target groups in short, medium, and long term. What will be the benefit that you will create on the final beneficiaries and the target groups? So regarding female employment and refugee employment, if you have a commitment, what are your expectations? So we are expecting you to provide information, technical and management capacity of the target group, what kind of change will be created, what is expected, how will the implementation take place, and multiplier effect. So at the end of this project, together with the project outputs, so from a macro perspective, will there be any replication? What will be the positive impact? Will the results be sustainable with respect to the institutions and the individuals. You can talk about those things. And short-term and long-term impact and sustainability. Financial sustainability, once the project is completed, how will the activities continue to be funded? Corporate and company policy aspect. I mean, these are the questions that you are supposed to provide answers to. You can see in blue the questions, and please reply to these questions. Environmental sustainability, environmental friendly, not being harmful or minimizing the detrimental effects to the environment. So if you have a technical capacity, you can talk about those. Social sustainability, have you described the vulnerable groups and identified them? Are you doing anything for those identified vulnerable groups under the scope of your sub-project? This is an EU project, so visibility activities are important. We will see whether the visibility activities will be implemented under the scope of the sub-project. Save and continue, and this is the budget section that I would like to walk you through. We are familiar with this grid. Nazanım already talked about this. So according to the scales, the companies have minimum and maximum sub-grant amounts that they can receive. So between 15,000 to 300,000 euros, the minimum and maximum. So of course, there is an expectation to have some co-funding because, I mean, the financial support will cover 50 to 70% of the overall budget, and the remaining part is expected to be co-financed by the company. Well, first of all, the budget that will be prepared should include the co-finance. It should be overall budget, and it should be prepared in euro. And also you have to take into consideration the foreign currency exchange of the Central Bank of Turkey on the date of application. So we never allow lump sum except for administrative and also incidental costs. What do we mean by that? So while preparing your sub-budget item by item, all the details should be entered. So it shouldn't be cumulative. So you're expected to show all your costs one by one, item by item. If we take the case of the human resources, so let's say you are making a commitment to employ 10 people, and maybe 10 of them have the same gender, have the same nationality, same qualifications. You cannot show them in cumulative form saying that I'm going to employ 10 people. You have to go one by one, 1, 2, 3, 4, until 10. Well, if there are some different qualifications, for instance, we separated Turkish nationals and refugees, 1, 1, 1, 2, and then you have to write them one by one. Even if they are of the same nationality, you have to show them one by one separately. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you click on plus, and then you can enter the relevant information. For instance, so I'm going to employ someone to work at the technical unit.
Sosyal uyum yardımına tabi olmayan bir
not subject to ESSN, I'm going to employ a Syrian individual not subject to ESSN. So the cost will be realized on the basis of months. So I choose month. So minimum duration of employment is 18 months. So I enter 18. Unit cost basis. So one person together with the insurance premium, the total cost to the employer for the relevant month has to be entered in terms of euros. So I entered some numbers which are indicative, 400, 450 euros, but you can make the calculation taking as basis the foreign currency exchange rate on the date of application, checking the website of the Central Bank of Turkey. Total costs of employment appears here. For example, technical staff, and in average 500 euros cost. So based on that, 18 months equals to
hangi değere karşılık geliyorsa diyerek
the resulting value.
bu kısmı
And I save.
maliyeti 7.200
And
euro çıkıyor.
7,200 euros for 18 months. That is the total cost. Similarly, you can have some
Elektrik, su gibi enerji
working capital costs, utility costs, energy costs, maintenance and repair costs. In terms of fixed investment, you may have machinery, equipment, software, or small-scale building activities. So similarly, you can see by clicking on plus in the related tab, you can enter the data as relevant. So, I mean, these are going to be on unit basis, no longer month. So how many machinery equipment you will procure? So you have to enter those data accordingly.
Aynı şekilde kaydettikten
Similarly, I save and the total cost appears here. And another important topic to underline here is environment, work permits, and other costs, eligible costs can be added to your budget, and then the total cost appears here after you enter all the relevant parts. And how much EU contribution do you expect? So Nazanım underlined, it can be 50 to 70% of the total eligible budget. So you have to enter some percentage between 50 to 70. And then you cannot touch anything else. When you say calculate, the total sub-project budget appears here. So the co-financing that you have to provide and the grant that you can receive appears here. I calculated this for a small scale company for showing you an example, and that's how you can see the values. Well, of course, there are some maximum and minimum a small scale company can receive. And of course, if it were a bigger number, or I mean, the number you could receive, if it were above 45,000, it wouldn't be appearing here, and there would be a reminder to revise your budget. So it is important to check everything before you prepare your budget.
Sizden çok temel finansal bilgilerinizi talep etmiştim.
So this is the financial part, financial plan part. You were requested to provide the financial information, but in this section, you're going to provide the past years and future years projected forecasts and estimates. Financial estimates are asked to be uploaded here. There is an example document, Excel sheet, for example, revenue stream, and also balance sheet statement are requested to be filled out, and you are also asked to upload those documents in PDF format, and then you click on save and continue. Then this brings you to the section for supporting documents. There are 40 supporting documents asked of you, but of course they are not all of them are compulsory for you to upload. There are also sample documents here for most of them. The first one is the letter of commitment signed. There is a sample document in Word format. You will download it, fill out it, and upload it to the system in PDF format, a letter of consent, and also statement that there is any attachment, final attachment or seizure, and those documents are signed and stamped by the relevant authorities of the company and uploaded in a PDF format. So if your company is prohibited from participating in public procurement, you need to inquire it from the e-government, and then you have to submit it and upload it in a PDF format. And if you can't upload the document, you can take the screenshot and then upload it. And activity certificate, maximum 3 months before the date of application, signed and stamped by the company, must be also uploaded here. And this is not compulsory capacity report because not all companies may have a capacity report, and the asterisks, those ones that are marked with asterisks, are compulsory documents. But the other ones, if they are relevant, if you have any, and during the contracting phase for evaluation and social evaluation part, environmental and social evaluation part, they may be requested from you, so you don't have to fill out those that are not compulsory. And trade registry gazette, similarly, companies may have this in electronic format, and if so, if it has a barcode, you can upload it into the system. And one of the compulsory ones is that if one of the partners have 25% of the shares or more, the copy of the ID card or passport or residence document, and also income statement tax certificate can be uploaded by getting it from the tax revenue office. And you are stating, you are making some statements about the number of employees, withholding and premium service statements, and also SSI document, which is current. If you have in electronic format, you can also upload them. And for 2020 end of year corporate tax statement, in addition to 2019 certified by the authorized financial accountant, and then signature circular must also be uploaded if you have any. And also another compulsory document is because you have a certain activity plan and you are drafting a budget, but of course somehow you have to justify that budget. You have to conduct a market survey. In this sense, pro forma invoices, internet slips, for example, are requested to be uploaded here. As I said before, the employees of the company that will be in charge of the project should have a CV in EU format, should be uploaded here. And for the environmental and social evaluation section in the presentation, Nazhanım highlighted that there isn't any sectoral restriction, but there are some activities that are not funded, that are excluded from funding. So you have to download this sample document and include show that your activities are not excluded, and also operating license and business startup certificate and environmental impact assessment report, if you have any, you should upload, or if you just apply for that. But if you're exempt from EIA, you are also expected to upload those relevant documents here. From this part on, I think we don't have any further compulsory documents, but in our guideline, you can find the details of the compulsory documents and the ones that will be asked from you later in the process. But without uploading these relevant compulsory documents here, you cannot move to the next section. For that reason, before logging into this platform, if you just read the application guideline so that you can learn in detail which documents are needed, and you can keep them ready before you start your application process. We are getting closer to the end of the platform. So this is the procurement plan part. So raw material, service procurement, or goods procurement, these are the budget items, and these are automatically filled in here together with the budgets and the dates, starting date. What you are expected to do here is to write a description. So this is a drop-down menu. Depending on the value you indicate in the budget. For example, there were 3 goods and services procurements, and then you select any of them. You have to indicate if it is a construction work, good or service, and then procurement method, because of the operations of the World Bank, for construction works, for goods, for consultancy, non-consultancy services, there are some abbreviations, sort of codes that you should use. That you can find the abbreviations at the lower part of this page. And also the budget should be indicated manually, and date should be also indicated here. Final part, logical framework and business plan. Just like in documentary support documents, we have a word sample document. So you have to download it, fill it out for your specific company, and then upload it in PDF format in this platform. Then when you click on the finalize the application, there is a pop-up warning. There won't be any modifications or edit on the completed applications, it says. So before you finalize your application, just save it as a draft and review it for a few times to avoid mistakes, and then complete it, because for the revision you have to submit an official letter to our bank to cancel your application, and then you have to start all over again for your application process. And then in line with your business plan, in line with the existing number of employees, whether you are a women inclusive company, it will be automatically displayed, and then your application will be taken into consideration. So in line with the documents that you will present to us, administrative and preliminary eligibility checks will be performed, and if your company passes these checks, your application will be evaluated and assessed by the independent assessors. This is all for the application platform. I tried to roughly show you this platform, but if you have any questions or any parts needing clarification, you can check the information from kais.org.tr or kais@kalkınma.com.tr, and we will be at your disposal for your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Caner Bey. We collect some questions from you. By the way, I'd like to make a few clarifications because there are related to the frequently asked questions regarding the number of existing employees. On which month data we will calculate the number of existing employees. So in your withholding and premium contribution statement, in the last month, before the date of application shall be taken as the basis for that calculation. Of course, the number of employees quite natural and may vary between months, but for example, you will probably have the statements of the previous month. So the most recent month's withholding and premium contribution statement should be taken as the basis to indicate the number of the existing employees with a breakdown of Turkish students and also refugees, and also the business plan will be reviewed. And then if you just have a look at the guideline, application guidelines annexes, and then log into the application platform, then you will proceed very easily, because there were 19 sections on the platform. Actually, they correspond to exactly to application form and business plan. So after you prepare them, then you can easily upload them to the system in a short time. And also from 23 to 40 in supporting documents regarding environmental and social evaluation, all those documents will be asked if you pass the first phase of assessment, technical evaluation and environmental. If your application will come to the environmental and social evaluation part, then those documents will be asked. Not from all companies, but only for those who can come to that stage. If your application can proceed to the final stage, you will be asked to provide those documents. And thirdly, how are we going to find the refugee employees? Where can we find them? Where can we get the support? There are community centers of Turkish Red Crescents. We have 24 project provinces. In 15 of them, there are community centers of Turkish Red Crescent, TRC. You can get guidance from them. You can consult them in order to find refugees who have the capacity to work. Of course, you can get support from that. Also, İşkur, provincial directorates of İşkur can also be consulted. And as for legislation, you can consult the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, Directorate General of International Labour. You can follow their publications and announcements. This is our recommendation to you. Another related matter is that you cannot employ, there is an impression that you cannot hire more than 10% of refugees. As of course, you have to submit your application to the Ministry of Labour, and that limit of 10% will not be a problem in our project. So you assume that there is not such a barrier, such a limit, and submit your application accordingly. And DG of International Labour will provide and issue the approval for that. In relation to that, foreigners who have residence permits will not be covered. Only refugees under temporary protection and international protection can be employed, and for that you can get support from our project. Shall we proceed with the questions, Özlem Hanım, if you like? We can proceed in this way. We can get the questions of our colleagues, online participants. There were a few important questions. There are specific questions, but striking ones. Can a solar energy system be considered as fixed investment cost? Can the grant the grant be provided for those systems? Yes, they are covered, but they should be for self-consumption, should be mounted on roofs. Those energy systems installed on lands cannot be considered within the scope of our program. Another question, in EU format, CVs in EU format, where can we find the templates of those CVs? There is a sample document in Word on the system. You can download it. Where exactly can you show? Can you tell where exactly on the system? I'll check the page now. So the section where you have to fill in the relevant key stuff of the project. You are already asked to provide them in the supporting documents. They are requested in PDF format. You have to upload them, but there is also a sample document on our system. Thank you. There is another question. Annual revenues will be filled in Turkish lira currency. Can we fill in all the financial information in euros? Yeah, financial information in the initial part, we want to see it in its Turkish lira format, and that the budget will be drafted in euros, and financial forecasts, financial plan will be in euros as well. There is only one part where you have to indicate it in Turkish lira, and of course the documents are in Turkish lira, so we can only verify them only in this way. If the partners of the company have fewer than 25% of the shares, do we nevertheless have to submit the residence certificate and the ID card copies of those shares? So if the partners have more than 25% of the shares, they have to submit. If less than that, you don't have to. I mean, the system is indicated like that. So for the fewer shares, you don't have to, but they can also notify the names, of course. Yeah, you should indicate the names, right? EIA report, environmental impact assessment report, is frequently asked. So if companies are exempt from this report, are they going to... It takes a long time to get the exemption document from the Minister of Environment and Urbanization. So is it enough if the authorized personnel of the company issue that document for you? Yeah, you can say. I can answer this question if you like. EI exemption, companies holding that exemption certificate, those certificates are uploaded to the relevant tab of the platform. If during the application process, they can get this certificate, exemption certificate, from the provincial directors of environment and also urbanization. So we ask them to provide them, but they say it takes a long time. It's a long process. Can an authorized personnel of the company issue a letter showing that they are exempt from EAI? So they should not show a declaration, but they should submit a letter of application for the start of that process to get the issuance of the exemption certificate. If they can do so, we can see that the process has already been initiated and we can accept them. The target groups and users. Can you please elaborate target groups and end users part, please? Naz, maybe you can answer this question because this is a general one, not so specific. In our project, Turkish citizens and refugees are the target groups. I mean, we are aiming at enhancing the conditions for the enterprises to increase formal employment of Turkish citizens and refugees, and companies will have access to financial support they may need for such employment. And for every new Turkish citizen and refugee they will employ, they will also contribute to formal employment. Thank you. There was a question. I downloaded the relevant documents last month. Have there been any revisions into documents, or are they still valid? Yeah, they are valid. Yeah, they are valid. Since after the date of the call, probably some revisions may have taken place, but as we know the date of application, so they are still valid. Regarding exchange rates, euros, there is a question. Maybe we can provide a more comprehensive answer to what was also found in frequently asked questions. In sub-budget preparation, is there any fixed euro rate that we should take as a basis? During application, the exchange rate selling rate of the central bank shall be taken as the basis. Probably you will forecast your budgets in Turkish lira, and then you will convert them into euros, because most of the expenses are expected to be in Turkish lira, especially employment expenses. But at the date of application, the selling rate of the central bank shall apply, and you have to indicate the date and also the rate. Thank you very much. And of course, I think projects seem to be close, and there are some questions about cost gap. One of the questions is the premium incentives from cost gap and also from İşkur. Can we also apply for the staff that they have already employed with certain incentives and also some skills development activities of İşkur? This is not applicable for the existing employees. So for the existing employees, this grant cannot be used because the budget for our project is allocated totally for the new additional employment for the same employee. You cannot use multiple incentive programs or schemes. A similar question. From cost gap, for the support from cost gap, they are provided, this support is provided for employment mainly. Instead of employment, can we have access to machinery and equipment support in CASE project? Do you think that our cost gap support will be cancelled if we have access to the grant, if you benefit from the grant of this CASE project? Our grant program is an employment program. Our ultimate priority is to increase formal employment and enhance the conditions for formal employment for the benefit of the Turkish citizens and also refugees. So disregarding employment is not possible to ignore employment and buy just machinery and equipment. In addition to employment, if you just buy machinery and equipment, will be much more suitable to us. For machinery and equipment, is it 5%? No, it's not 5%. 5% is applicable to small-scale construction works. We don't have such a percentage for the machinery and equipment. There is a Turkish question. For 18 months, if that same person is not employed and if the same person's employment is maintained if he leaves, and is it possible to replace him or her for the rest of the 18 months? Companies in the design of the project are expected to present and submit an employment plan, and in that plan they should indicate the new employees, their nationalities. They should indicate the nationalities of the new employees and also the gender, a female or a male. So during the implementation phase, there may be different situations that may occur, for especially Syrians under temporary protection have to work formally, and they may work for a short time and then leave. So to avoid that, several trainings will be provided in order to develop the skills of the newly employed employees. But nevertheless, if that situation occurs, as indicated in the employment plan, they can replace them with a similar similarly qualified ones, and they should maintain employment as they undertook the commitment for 18 months. So this is a general question, Nazanım. There is a specific question. Are we going to ensure employment for 18 months? In 18 months? That was, I think, such a limitation. So throughout the duration of the project for 21 months, companies are expected to create and maintain employment for 18 months. As regards the prohibited sectors, excluded sectors, there was a question. In defense industry, companies manufacturing weapons, can they also apply? No, unfortunately, this is in the exclusion list, especially weapon and firearms manufacturing, alcohol, spirits, and tobacco products are all excluded. So in general, in international funding, these are not eligible. You said that roof type solar energy systems may be eligible, but so if the building is rented, can they also be covered? Rooftop type. It depends on the property. Who will own the property of that system? It may be a little bit complicated as the company, as the beneficiary of the project, must make that investment. It is complicated. It may be complicated. I mean, on a rented building, solar power energy system, who's going to be the owner? So it's a complicated situation. For the assembly manufacturing lines of medical devices, can we apply? We don't have any barrier. Before that, they can apply. From the Provincial Directorate of Environmental License and Permission, or from the Ministry of Environment, we applied for exemption letter, but this has not been concluded yet. Would you accept our application letter to the system? Yeah, this is a specific approach, but yes, if you just applied and submit your application letter, we can accept that. So whatever they have for the environmental impact assessment, maybe the application process, exemption letter, or the certificate, whatever you have about that process, you can upload them. But one document is very important. The certificate to operate and start up a business is a must. You have to submit them, either itself, the original copy, or you should submit the document showing that you have already applied for that certificate or document. There are 7 manufacturing benches for which we concluded the procurement agreement. We want to buy some shuttle buses for the employees. Would they be eligible for the project? Timing is important. So that's exactly what we want. They concluded the agreement contract, but the procurement plan timing, if they have already purchased them, it's not going to be eligible. After the grant contract has been signed, the expenses to be incurred will be eligible. The date of the contract is 2002. After that date, for the is the grant be applicable for the procurements after that date? Yeah, we will get back to the previous question again. Right after your project is approved, then the expenses and costs that are incurred, not the application that, after your project is approved and contract has been signed, grant contract has been signed between the beneficiary company, potential applicant, and our bank, then your expenses and costs that will be incurred will be covered and will be eligible. In the market survey, for the procurement of a pencil, for example, how many pro forma invoices we should get? At least 3. I think these are the general commercial traditions or practices. Under the project, new employees to be recruited, do they have to be additional? For example, every month we hire and also fire 15 employees every month, so mobility is very high or rotation is very high. For the newly employed 15 employees, can I have access to this project? Can you please clarify this? The number of the employees at the date of the application shall be taken as the basis. We need to elaborate on that a bit. At the date of application, Social Security institution documents and withholding tax statement will be evaluated to calculate the number of existing employees. And after the evaluation process has been finalized for your application, as soon as your contract has been signed, we're expecting you to recruit new employees. As this process is a little bit long, as you can remember from the timetable, the company, there may be some people going out from the company, but of course we do not prefer the following, just for the sake of benefiting from this support. If you just hire the existing employees and then rehire them, of course this is not going to be ethical. But except these situations, if there is an exceptional situation, so if you just justify it and explain the situation, that won't be a problem. Of course, there are similar questions, but after the personnel is employed, if they leave job, what kind of a process should we follow? Maybe Naz, you may continue, or Ayşegül Hanım. I just would like to say another thing. So first, Naz should answer this question, then we will highlight another point. With this project, the personnel that you will hire, if that personnel leaves, then you have to replace him or her in line with your employment plan. You have to restore it to the former situation. Of course, one staff member may not stay in that company for the entire 18 months for various reasons. Of course, we don't prefer that situation, but if those new employees leave, then you have to find new ones. You have to employ new ones. In relation to that, we need to highlight for the potential applicants that after the grant contract is signed, after the project is kicked off, we will have known the number of existing employees, and also we will see the names of the people who will be employed after the project. And throughout this project, monthly Social Security institution documents will be cross-checked for verification, because we will see such situations directly on those documents, so it won't be acceptable. I mean, we're going to check the names of those employees. We will verify the names of the people. So if we see that they are sacked, then after the project they are rehired, they will be evident from those documents, and these are not so suitable eligible actions, so they will be found out right from the start. For that reason, your companies are expected to maintain the existing employment, and then add on top of that, of course, in commercial and business life, there may be some mobility and rotation, high rotation between the employees, but those extraordinary mobilities or rotations will not be accepted. So reimbursement based on merits will be made through checks and there is a question about golden rate in the employment of the staff members, as different qualifications will apply. So how are we going to ensure a balanced distribution? It is easier to find qualified employees from Turkish citizens. This is not applicable to refugees. So how are we going to strike a right balance for that? So we will try to strike a balance. You are expected to strike the rightest balance. Of course, for their activities, the right and most optimum employees can be found by the companies. They have that right. But as much as possible, please pay attention to strike a balance for the qualifications as well. But if you can't achieve that, we can't impose anything, or we can't force you to do anything, but we are expecting you to do your utmost, to do your best. So are we going to employ all the planned employees at once? Caner, maybe you can explain this. On the platform, we showed it, we have an activity plan and employment plan. In our employment plan, you will show who you will hire, what their qualifications, gender and nationality are. And also on the timetable in the budget also, you are going to click the date, the estimated date you will employ. And so because there is an orientation process for those new employees for HR processes, but in a total duration of 21 months, we're expecting the companies to create and maintain employment, formal employment for 18 months. To achieve that, at least in the third month, you should conclude your contracts with the employees. So you have maximum 2 or 3 months until you employ the new people. But right after the contract, you have to find people to create additional employment, and you're expected to sign the agreements and contracts with those new employees. And you answered the question, but there is also another similar question. In a total duration of 20 months of this project, we will maintain employment 18 months. So as it's going to take 1 month to recruit personnel. So will you accept 17 months of employment? Main rule is to maintain employment for 18 months in all circumstances. And for financial support, the first slice is 10% to be given as in advance payment, and in the second and third and fourth parts, we are going to cross-check the documents of the company through the Social Security Administration documents. If they are not undertaking their commitments based on those documents, they're going to get the benefit from the grant program at a lower limit. So 17 months will not be applicable. In the employment plan, if you can't find the refugees that we promised in the employment plan, what will happen then? At a point, you can consult the community centers of TRC, İşkur. You have to put all kinds of efforts into it. We have to see that you have put into your efforts into it. And also, on the basis of sector and the company, we can reassess the situation, and we can check some intermediate interim assessment. And if they can't find at all, then we can take a necessary action. They need to make a justification, submit a justification. It is clear that there will be a deduction in the grant amount if they cannot. For the Syrian staff employees to be hired, it's not possible for us to know if they have access to ESSN. So in that situation, what kind of a process we should follow? The employees, if they benefit from ESSN, they know whether they get it or not. So community centers of TRC, İşkur, and DG for international labor can be consulted for that.
Work permit expenses are not so high, and is it okay if we don't include them in our project budget? Naz, you can provide an answer to this. Well, yes, of course, you may not write that. That's a choice. You may choose not to write that. It's optional. So if in the human resources budget item, you have refugees, and if you want to write their work permit expenses, the budget allows you to do that. But if you don't prefer writing those expenses, it's your preference, it's okay. So the employment applies to September 2022 and after, right? We can talk about the plan. What are we planning? The application process will come to an end on the 28th of February. Maybe you can talk about the timeline, Naz. Yes, of course, sure. So the 28th of February, the call for proposals will be closed. So that is the deadline for the applications. And afterwards, in March, as we described in our presentation, there will be administrative controls and eligibility checks, which is the first step of the evaluation. After the administrative evaluation, we will have technical and financial evaluation, and 2022 May, that is the time when it will be completed. After technical and financial evaluation, there will be environmental and social evaluation to be conducted by an independent team of experts, and that will be be completed in July 2022. And afterwards, the contracting authority, the Development and Investment Bank of Turkey, will announce its decision. And afterwards, in 1 month, in September, the sub-grant contracts are supposed to be concluded. So once the contracts are signed, the companies can employ new people. They can actually implement the new employment as they planned. Okay, so next question concerns for medium scale. You said the number of employees to be 16, but we can have fewer people to meet the same budget. What is the purpose? To increase the number of unskilled staff because we have some engineers. Well, of course, we don't have the purpose to support employment of unskilled people. Of course, in a flexible way, the companies are expected to do their plans according to their needs. 16 is for receiving the full score, the full points available. Well, of course, you can use the budget by employing fewer people. There is no barrier preventing you to do that. Well, of course, the purpose is to create as many employment opportunities as possible. Okay, so again, the question for the new employees, when they benefit from the insurance premium incentive, so should we calculate their costs by excluding the incentive provided? Yes, the actual cost will be taken into consideration. Well, if you are receiving an incentive, it means you're not paying for it, so it will not be included. Will the application be in English and Turkish? Is it and or? So it has to be either Turkish or English, either in English or in Turkish, not in English and in Turkish. The application must be either in English or in Turkish. So, new product in already existing facility. If this is the sub-project, is it okay to include costs as raw material and energy costs? Do we have to buy a new machinery and equipment in any case? There is an already existing facility, so new product will be produced. So there will be raw material and energy. So those are the costs. Do we have to buy new machinery and equipment? No, that is not compulsory. That will be employment and working capital, and you can plan your budget accordingly. For the financial plan, you shared an example as a spreadsheet. Do we have to fill in data on that spreadsheet on Excel? Because the income table and balance sheet, there are some titles which are rather confusing. For instance, in the income table, income and costs related to other activities. This is rather confusing. Caner Bey? Well, in fact, the financial plan that we prepared is based on the main document, which is in English. Maybe there are some confusing terms in the Turkish version, which is a translation. So income table, balance sheet, those are standard in Turkey. So maybe net sale income or terminology as such might be confusing, or a term such as net income can be confusing. So net sale income, what we refer to by saying that is the sales, the net sales, and the net sales income is the net profit. So please use the financial plan that is made available through the platform. If the applicant specifically talks about which is the confusing part, by sending us an email, we can clarify that confusion and explain what the problem is to correct and fix the issue. And please send us an email specifically talking about the confusing term. Okay, so our projects are new investments. If they are new investment and first day for the commissioning of the project, will you give us time? So for those companies that do not have any employees at the moment, it's not eligible. They need to have at least 2 years of activity, and they need to have some employees already working for that company. Okay, so can we send our already existing employees to our work site abroad? Well, the location should be one of the 24 provinces. So sending people abroad, and maybe for a while, but maybe they are receiving their salary from Turkey. There can be secondment. There can be secondment. Maybe on a temporary basis, you're sending them to work abroad, to a work site, to a construction site abroad, but it is really important where they are based. Well, at this point, it is really important to underline that on a monthly basis, there will be some site visits and there will be some monitoring. So we will see the people who were supposed to be employed, who are on the payroll, but we have to check on site and monitor on site who is really present. So 7 new equipment will be manufactured, and we as a company, we already made some contracts. So that's why I understood that they are not going to be under the scope of the project. And for their effective functioning, 17 personnel and 1 shuttle bus is required. So can it be supported? Well, definitely so, but they have to describe this in detail. They have to describe that there is already an investment they have made for modernization or for capacity strengthening. So they need some new employment and they want to plan for that. Please describe it and please design the project and the budget accordingly.
For Syrians under temporary protection, the application process, approval and conclusion shall with the relevant directorate for migration management cannot be less than 1 month. Isn't there any solution to overcome this long, lengthy process? So community centers of TRC and our project has already been known, and the project is funded by FRID. So DG for International Labour supports you as much as possible. So at this point, this is why the project duration is 21 months, because there may be a time loss because of the personnel rotation for that reason. De facto 18 months is conditional for maintaining of employment, because you're going to publish your announcements. But if you can do it in advance, there won't be any time loss. But if you need some more time, maybe starting from the 2nd month, you can ensure the maintenance of employment for 18 months within 21 months. For the companies operating in organized industrial zone, did I also have to submit the certificates to startup and activity report? Yeah, they have to, yeah, just like the other companies. So project identification file, is it compulsory? Can you please give further information about that? Form is PowerPoint presentation for that project going to be enough because they have not been concluded. Project identification file is for the projects under the scope of the environmental impact assessment. If so, you're expected to have it already. And if that company is not within the scope of the EIA, there is no need for you to submit your project identification document. It is enough if the descriptions in the initial part is enough. As we discussed before, that it is not possible for us to know the minimum wages in 2023. Will the budget of the project change? And I was going to have an implication on the project, because you apply based on certain wages and there will be some increases afterwards. So the budget of the project is fixed with euros. So it is fixed in euros. That budget amount cannot be increased through revisions. If you need a revision during the evaluation phase, that revision can be made. It can be decreased, but it cannot be increased. as we indicated in the budget part, you have to indicate your estimated, calculate your estimated Turkish lira expenses as of the date of application. You have to convert them into the euros. Of course, there may be some increases in expenses and costs. This is quite ordinary in Turkey. But of course, there will be an increase in euros as they forecast. For that reason, I think there is going to be an equilibrium in this increase and growth rate. And except that, as we're going to make the payments based on the actual costs that have already been incurred, they will be paid on with the exchange rate on that date of reimbursement. For that reason, there won't be, I think, any loss or profit because of the exchange rate.
Spesifik soru var ama isim
There is a
vermeden.
specific question, but I'll try to answer it anonymously. For the 19th, instead of the operation certificate or license to operate, we have an allocation document from this or that company. From a cooperative, we received a letter from the cooperative for application, and the municipality does not accept our application in no circumstances. Will that letter from the cooperative be accepted if a municipality does not accept it? We can't accept it, unfortunately. It seems that there is a certain action or transaction like leasing or renting. So this is a very specific question on the basis of that project. So municipalities or the organized industrial zones should issue that certificate and license to operate. So if you want to provide further details for your question, distinguished participants, it will be much better for us to support you further, but this is the general framework. This is the general answer that we can give now. Will the application deadline be extended? No, we're not planning to do so now. We don't plan to do so. There are some companies who have started this application process but not completed yet. So we kindly request you to finalize your application process. We recommend that you should not wait till the last moment, the last deadline. So you are kindly requested to finalize your applications shortly. With the grants, will there be any overlapping between the grants and the social security institutions initiatives or incentives under the control of the SSI? If there are branches and headquarters, which one are you going to take into consideration? So because every one of them will have a different SSI registry number, as mentioned by Caner Bey and Naz Hanım previously. Not the headquarters of the company, but what matters is where the employment will be created, which province they are going to create the employment. That will be the basis. So what about overlapping between the grant and the social security institution incentives? For the future incentives, if they are going to overlap with the future incentives, actual costs will be taken as the basis. For that reason, we are not going to make any payment for those parts in the future. The last question I found, it is specific, but it says, on the first page of the application guideline, for 2021 number of employees, existing employees, and indicate the month, specify the month, it says. I think when the application process is extended, such updates were not made in the application form. Are we going to indicate the numbers for January 2022, or are we going to show December 2021 for that application? So we can make a clarification for that. This was mentioned in the meetings as well. The most recent dates shall be taken as the basis to indicate the number of existing employees. So you have to indicate the data of January. Of course, the call for proposal was announced on the 17th of December 2021, and that's why those companies that applied at that time, we wanted to see their number of existing employees, but as we extended it, we want to see the most up-to-date, most recent data from the companies. This was the last of all the questions I received so far, and we answered all the questions. I don't know, while we are closing this meeting, if we will get any further questions. So there is another one here.
Teşekkürler mesajlarımız var. Çok teşekkür
They say thank you. Thank you very much. We also would like to thank you very much for your attention. Will there be any tax to be imposed on the grant? Of course, grant is an income without any collateral. So either they are going to register it or record it as a revenue, or they will be included in the equities. Depending on your accounting method, it may vary, but of course, it is an income. It is an income for the company. So that will be taxed. Yeah, that will be taxed, definitely. Visibility costs. Can you please give an example to visibility costs? Nazanım, I think you mentioned about it in your presentation. Can you give an example to visibility costs? Of course. Throughout the implementation phase of the project, these are the costs that may incur. For example, a signboard for the project indicating where the fund is, that this project has been funded by the European Union, for example, or a brochure may be printed, or any promotional material may be printed by the company regarding the activity, the subject matter of which is employment. And in such visibility expenses can be predicted in the planning phase and can be included into the budget. Can you please answer this question? In application, any contribution participation fee, or after the contract phase, for any audit to be implemented, will there be any fee that we will have to pay for that audit? No, they are not going to pay any fees. I mean, our bank will not collect any fee for that. For 2023 and 2024, we will predict that minimum wage will increase by 50%. In such a project, if the wage increases are lower than what we predict, it will not be perceived as unjustified benefit, as the actual costs will be taken into consideration. They cannot get more. But if there is such a plan, there won't be any problem later on, because this is just an estimate. This is just a forecast, but it may not be a 50% increase in the minimum wage. Of course, it depends on the inflation rate, that it may be lower than that. But of course, it is going to be paid and calculated on the actual costs. The number of employees will be the basis for that. Does the company have to have a net sales income? Because this company was established in 2019. As of 2020, we started employing people, and we are about to finalize our establishment process, and the sales will happen in the following months. But of course, we don't have any conditionality for profitability activities and the past history of the company, and the information that you will provide to identify your company. Maybe your company has been established, no activities were carried out, and there are losses. Is it an idle, inactive company, or they just started the activity, but they could not get any profit yet? These are important. But to highlight it again, although we have a condition of 2 years, but our program is not a support program for the startups. We're going to support the companies that have already created formal employment strongly. We want to enhance their conditions and increase their capacity to create additional employment. So such applications should be evaluated separately and individually. We can't say something general. There is another question. We have employees now, but the project has just started and it will take 2 years to start it. So there is also a commissioning period for your project as well. I mean, when we start a project for the implementation, will it give us some time? I think this is such a question, but You're expected to make a plan, and you are expected to get into implementation phase right away, because the period is very shorter than many other projects, because 18 months of employment within 21 months. But you have to have very solid projects, and they need to be able to implement it right away. And there is another question about the cooperative as an alternative to the operational license. Can we accept the document to be issued by the cooperatives? In principle, no. And foundations also not eligible. There was another question, similar question. You already answered it, but I want to learn again. Are we going to employ qualified people or just formal employment? Our priority is to create formal employment. This is one of the priorities of the program. But this doesn't necessarily mean that they are not going to hire unqualified people. It depends on the preferences of the companies, each individual company. So we are seeking to see the necessary employment that you may need to carry out your activities. This may require higher qualifications in some of the companies, but in some of the companies you may not need skilled workers or qualified workers. Do we have to indicate the total number of employees, including those at the headquarters and also the branches? Yeah. For the existing ones, yeah. And I think this is the last. There were some repetitions, but of course, I think we finalized all the questions. Yes. So we answered all the questions, I see. If you still may want to ask any questions, we will be at your disposal, as I said before. We want to increase the number and the quality of these applications. We want to get eligible, acceptable projects. For that reason, if you need any clarifications for further questions, you can visit our website, CASE website, and also we are here at your disposal whenever you want. You can contact us and submit your questions more ideally. We will have another last meeting next month on Wednesday, on the 23rd, and after that, we will, and the last deadline for the submission of the questions is 24th. There are project proposals in the draft, and we are going to expect them to be finalized till the 28th of February. And so we are waiting for the applications to be finalized and submitted as soon as possible. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Stay healthy and hope to see you. Thank you. Good day. Good day. Thank you.